Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Dr. Tumi Johnson, author of Delicious Healing. Dr. Tumi, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Paul.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to get started?
Yes.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I love this question. I would suggest presence. And what I mean by that is staying present to the process of writing. I think in this day and age, a lot of writers knowing the marketplace or not knowing the marketplace around publishing and getting one's book out there, it can seem really daunting. And I think it can sometimes hijack the process, the creative process that is, I believe, the true engine of doing this. So stay present to the writing and trust the process that you'll figure it out later in terms of the rest that comes.
And I love that you mentioned that. It's all about trusting the process. Just take those first steps, let the creative juices flow.
Exactly.
Well, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think the biggest challenge, I'll speak for myself, and it's something I'm glad I overcame very quickly, which is being limited in your belief of how to get published, right? So you can have this idea of, I need to have an agent. I need to have gone to school and gotten an MFA in writing. You can have all these limiting ideas of how it is your book gets published. And I think that can really get in your way. And so I think once you release that, we're also at a beautiful time where there are more and more avenues of getting published and more creative ways of getting published. So I think being open to the different avenues can really help that process.
And I think the biggest challenge I think a lot of authors face, or aspiring authors, is imposter syndrome. They don't feel like what they have to share with the world is relevant. And I can tell you, every single person has a story. Everyone is an expert in something. And it's great to be able to share that with the world, because when you do that, it's almost, I don't want to say it's like immortality, but you're able to leave that legacy that's going to last for generations.
That's beautifully put. And I think alongside with that is this idea that I think it's similar to imposter syndrome, which is, well, everybody already has, this story has already been told. And that's not true, because nobody can tell your story the way you can, right? So it's this idea that we all have an authenticity and we all have a place at the table, and having the self-love and the self-confidence to say, my story is worth being heard and can be medicine for somebody, I think is really helpful.
Exactly. Just have that mentality, the power of one. If you can help one person with your book, then it's all worth it, because at the end of the day, you're going to be able to help a lot more people than just one. But just having that mentality going, hey, if I can help one person, it's all worth it.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
So this is an interesting one that I'm excited to share. And I think it speaks to what you just spoke about, right? The idea of authenticity, the idea of everyone being unique. So I'm a physician and I'm also a dancer, and I've been dancing for a very long time. I was part of a dance company. I do dance performances throughout the world still. So one of my biggest strategies for marketing was actually through dance. So I had a book dance tour, and what it looked like is I would give dance performances in which I also shared holistic health tips and interwove that with sharing about my book. And I did that throughout the States, mostly in New York and California, and then also in Costa Rica, where my husband and I were traveling. And so I I shared about my book through my dance, and I still do. So when I do dance performances in different parts of the world, I was just in Thailand. I will weave in my health advice, my holistic health advice, and usually my book will definitely come up. So it's been this beautiful marketing strategy that feels really authentic to me and unique to me. And I think it also touches people, I think, in the way that the arts do really uniquely.
So you were doing these tours where you're doing dance performance, and then during some of the interlude, so to speak, you were also given a talk about it, or were you talking more like near
Yeah,
the
good
beginning or near
question.
the end?
It was a blend. So
Hmm.
usually I would start with a dance and then I would speak a little bit and then I would dance some more and then I'd speak a little bit and then I would quote from the book. And then there was a book signing afterwards. And a lot of people who came to see the dance left with a book in their hand.
So the events that you had, was there an admission fee for them to be able to come to see the dance, or was
Hmm.
that free admission? How did that work?
It changed from site to site. And again, this is the idea of being open, right?
Yeah.
So there were some venues where there was a fee to come, and there were some venues where I just wanted as big an audience as possible who were open to just hearing the information, depending on the community and what their ability was, depending on the venue. And if I had to rent the venue, for example, then there was like a suggested donation or a fee. So it changed from site to site. When I was in Costa Rica, it was open, but many people again ended up buying the book, and some of them became my patients and clients afterwards. So I think it's about weighing each location and figuring out what's best in terms of the marketing strategy.
And also, your field is holistic health, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm board certified in internal medicine,
Hmm.
but my focus is really in the whole person. So
Yeah.
I really try to actually get people away off from depending on pharmaceutical medication
Yep.
and really tapping into their healing potential through many different ways.
So going a little bit off script, what is your view about fasting?
Oh, wow. Wasn't expecting that one.
I know, curveball, right?
I I think, yeah, no worries, no worries. I think fasting, and I'll be very specific about what I mean by fasting. I have actually a whole chapter in my book around rest, and part of that chapter is about digestive rest.
Hmm.
I think we don't do it enough. I think that if it's done well, fasting can actually help to free the body to help heal what's going on, but it needs to be done well. And if it's done for a long period of time, it needs to be definitely supervised. And coming off the fast is also vital. So I've seen many people who fast, whether it's a water fast or it's just kind of a cleanse, but when they come off, it goes from detox to retox. So having somebody who knows about the science of fasting and guiding you through that so that you are doing that properly and coming off of it properly is key. But it can be very healing, and I've
Well,
seen it.
Well, the reason I mentioned it, about a month and a half ago, my doctor put me on intermittent fasting, and it's just been a
Uh-huh.
game changer. I mean, I feel so much better. Dropped quite a bit of weight because I've always been up and
Yes.
down. I mean, my first book was based on my own health crisis and put a little weight on, and this has been the one thing that's really sorted it out long term. And I'm just a huge believer in intermittent fasting. I just kind of want to get your thoughts on there too, especially with your view about it being the whole body and everything.
Yeah, well, I'll just share with you really quickly is that I have done intermittent fasting myself. I eat now I'm now 8.5 months pregnant, so that has shifted a bit.
Oh
But
yes.
before my pregnancy, before my pregnancy, I'd been doing intermittent fasting organically. It came very naturally to me, and then the science really backs it up for many things. And I've been doing it for about 4 years, and it was also wonderful for me, and it's something I recommend to many of my clients and patients. Again, done well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the most important thing that you mentioned, with doctor supervision, because I never would have done
Yeah.
it unless my doctor specifically recommended it. And it's made a huge difference. And it really is amazing because I agree with you completely. Once things are done properly, the body can truly heal itself with just about anything.
Yes. So good to hear your story. Thanks for sharing.
So, speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
So I'll be really honest with you. This is a hard one for me. I've been a bibliophile for all my life. It's one of my top things to do. I have too many favorites, but I will say to you, the past few months, um, I have revisited a book called Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. And Toni Morrison was an incredible writer, and she passed away very recently. So her passing brought me to that book again. And I would say the biggest lesson from that book, from Song of Solomon, is the idea of loving yourself and loving other people with space and grace, is what I would say. The idea of giving people license to be themselves, loving without expectation, and really owning your self-love. That's what that book is beautiful for sharing.
Excellent. Unconditional, right?
Yep, exactly.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Also, lots of favorites, but I think one that keeps coming up for me over and over in many stages of my life. This one has been attributed to Mohandas Gandhi, and it's "Be the change you want to see in the world."
And why is that quote?
I You know, I think, Paul, what I love about it is that I find it so empowering. And in a world where sometimes you can think, wow, this is out of my control, climate issues or environmental issues, politics, maybe what's going on in your own family, what's going on to you, you get to understand with that quote that you, as one person, can be an extremely powerful agent of change. And I think when we can all own that, we see more and more positive change in the world. So rather than saying the world is the way it is because of this or that person, um, taking ownership and responsibility for being a light, for being an agent of change, I think is really empowering. And I think it's the truth. If we all owned up to our power, I think amazing things could happen.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Toomey, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show today. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Probably the best way is if you go to my website, which is drtumijohnson.com. That's DRTUMI, M as in Mary, Johnson, JOHNSON.com. I also have a YouTube channel that is a blend of my dance work as well as my holistic health advice. And my YouTube channel is The Poem Dances, ThePoemDances. Same handle as my Instagram. Those are the best ways of reaching me online.
Dr. Toomey, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
You too, Paul. Thank you again.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.